Okay, Drew. So we've obviously talked about us being involved physically, in a bunch of sports stuff. Your home run, my, multiple, sports moments, the shots, the kicks, and all this stuff. But you know what? I want to dig into the origins of my sports.
Interesting.
Yeah, the origins of how I got interested in sports.
Cool.
It's pretty that sounds pretty crazy, but you know what? It's historical. It's history because look, bro, my sports knowledge only spans like 5 years, really. It really only spans 5 years. Like as far as when it comes to being really knowledgeable about a specific sport.
Yeah. Hey, that's kind of crazy. Thinking about now you're doing a sports podcast.
Yeah, and obviously I've come such a long way in such a short time, and I really want to pick things up in middle school because I paid absolutely, I won't say absolutely no attention, but I would barely pay attention to the NFL. The only thing I was interested in was the Denver Broncos, and they weren't on. I was mad. I remember one time where they were playing the Titans when they were bad, and I was mad that they couldn't be on TV. Um, but I mean, that's before I even got introduced to, oh, the better games get the more broadcast.
Yeah.
So back then, I really did not pay attention to the NFL outside the Broncos. Like I didn't care about any other team really, and I mean I wasn't all that knowledgeable. I was just like Broncos, Broncos, Broncos,
Hey,
and I, you
o-
know,
over your right shoulder, we got the little Broncos pennants, basically.
yeah, yeah, dude, that was kind of childhood right there, man. It's just like,
I like it.
yeah, I liked it too, and you know what? Going into middle school, I was just like, okay, so this is how it is. And after watching Super Bowl 49 between the Patriots and the Seahawks, that really opened my eyes to the league more often. Because obviously Super Bowl 48, I was bawling like a baby because of the Broncos getting blasted. Look at the alliteration. Um, and then obviously the next year, I will never forget watching that. I felt like I was sleepwalking through the 2014 NFL season because I really didn't know that much about other teams, but I started watching more in 2015, and that's really where my sports knowledge really started to kick off because I really started to take notes of this team. Okay, Patriots are this dynasty, and Steelers are this team trying to dethrone them and stuff like that, and all this and that, and that's kind of where I started. And what a time for me to really start getting into it because that's the year the Broncos won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I was just about to say. I was like, hey, that's pretty good timing, I guess.
Yeah, and I remember, you know, I missed the times where I had time restrictions, and I wouldn't say I missed falling asleep in the fourth quarter, but I missed you know waking up to seeing what happened and then going to school and talking about it.
I remember those days, man. Especially when I in like 2012, like I said, Red Wings Blackhawks dynasty last story time episode. I talked about how the Red Wings blew their 3-1 lead. I remember I went to sleep. Then my mom came up and told me that the Blackhawks defeated the Red Wings and the Red Wings were eliminated, and I was crying. And then I went back to school, and all the kids brought the newspapers and showed me them. I
Yeah.
remember that. I remember that. And same with the Tigers 2012 World Series. I remember going to sleep. Game 4, going down to my computer, checking the score just to see Miguel Cabrera was struck out in the final out of the World Series, and they got swept. So I know that feeling all too well.
You were 8 years old and you knew how to use a computer.
Dude, hey, I've been on this technology stuff since I was like 4.
As clearly shown.
There you go.
But yeah, dude. then as the seasons got progressed, I started getting more interested and more interested and more interested, and obviously I am with the NFL right now. Obviously by far my favorite sport. Um, you know, that's the dream sport to cover. Obviously I'll do other sports on the side, of course, but the main goal is to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Hey, if I think no matter what you're doing, whether you're a fan, whether you're a reporter, whether you're an analyst, whether you're
There we
I
go.
don't know a concession stand person, whether you're a worker, whatever you're doing, if you're at a Super Bowl, I mean, no matter literally what you're doing, that is probably the coolest thing you've ever done. Not to like say anything, but like think about being at a Super Bowl. No matter what you're doing, that's insane. Not many people have ever been to a Super Bowl. Obviously, there are fans in the stands every year, but just think about that small percent of people who have actually been able to witness a Super Bowl with their own two eyes in person.
Yeah, it's so minimal, man. I want to be one of those people, and I want to do it and get paid.
Hey, nothing better watching football getting paid. That'd
Oh
be
my
a
gosh,
dream.
dude. Yeah, obviously I just have to make sure I got my speech straight. But I think I got the speech locked down. All I need to do is put in the interviews and the work and stuff like that, and just create a presence.
I like
Make a
it.
name for myself and stuff like that.
I like it. I respect the hustle, the grind.
Oh my gosh, I call a Super Bowl and it's a close game. Oh, you're gonna hear it from me. Yeah, you're gonna hear it, bro.
I'm sure. I am sure.
I gotta wonder. I don't think there's ever been a black man to broadcast a Super Bowl on like the major networks like CBS and ABC and Fox and stuff like that. I gotta
I'm
look
not sure either.
because I mean obviously we know John Madden, Pat Summerall, and Al Michaels and all those legends and stuff like that. Joe Buck, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
Um, which Joe Buck is really a big reason why I'm thinking, okay, if he can do this, I can do that.
Hey, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Because
And
I
don't get
mean,
me wrong, I love Joe Buck. I
he
love Joe
does
Buck.
everything too.
Yeah, Joe Buck is one of my favorite sportscasters. Since we're talking about baseball so much, I guess I'll talk about how I got into baseball. So obviously, I got into baseball because of the Chicago Cubs, and them snapping that playoff drought when they won the NLDS against the Cardinals, and they were finally good again. Um, I had been hearing about the Cubs and stuff like that. So I was like, huh, what's this Cubs team? And they that's the year that they lost to the Mets in the NLCS.
That was a good
And
series.
my mom, one of her friends was a Mets fan, and I remember when the Mets lost the World Series, my mom trolled her, because obviously Cubs fan, versus Mets fan. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you get the point.
My boy Daniel Murphy went off. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, and I'm just like, okay, so this is baseball. And so I tuned into the next postseason, saw the Cubs championship run. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And, that's kind of when I first started really disliking the Dodgers like I do now. Because obviously the Cubs had to get through the Dodgers to win the pennant and stuff like that. And, the Dodgers were a really good team. And, they had the series lead and I was scared. And I was like, I'm looking at that game four and I'm just like, come on, man, we can't lose this. And after, I mean, that's crazy, and I'll get to the 3-1 later. But yeah, dude, it was just like, so this is baseball, huh? And then I started progressively, tuning into more regular season baseball, putting my close game alerts on and stuff like that. Then I tuned into the 2017 postseason. That 2017 World Series, oh my gosh,
That was
that's one of the
wild.
best World Series I have ever watched. That was one of the most entertaining, probably the most entertaining World Series I ever watched. Yeah, sure, it was nullified, but at the moment, you can't tell me you weren't at the edge of your seat, bruh.
That World Series against the Astros was the most exciting World Series that anyone has seen in probably the past 10 years, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, I get that definitely. And then I think 2018 is when I started, tuning into Sunday Night Baseball and stuff like that. Um, then obviously I saw the Red Sox win the World Series. I'm like, okay. I mean, I know the Red Sox. like it's funny because I thought the Red Sox were a dynasty. I thought they were a powerhouse. I thought they were kind of like on the same level as the Yankees, but I just did some research and I was like, whoa, okay, it's definitely
No,
not even
I
close.
mean they have a pretty good history, but they've also had a pretty brutal history with the curse and
Yeah,
whatnot. They had a curse for a while ever since. I mean, before the early 2000s, they were probably on the same level as the Cubs.
yeah. I saw that. I was like, huh. I mean, I was definitely deceived by the Boston Red Sox because I used to play MVP baseball 2005. Manny Ramirez on the cover right after the Red Sox won the World Series in '04, and I'm thinking, okay, this team is goaded. And then they won the World Series in I think '06, and then 13, and then out 18. I'm like, okay, this team is legendary. This is a dynasty. Um, well, not really. Not really.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
it is kind of, I guess, misleading because they have that big rivalry with the Yankees. Yankees are a good team. Red Sox, they're. I would say they are a good franchise, not great.
yeah. And then obviously, last year's World Series, the Nationals that run. I mean, at that point, I was already, glued into baseball fan, locked in completely. But yeah, they're just seeing the Nationals win the World Series. It's like underdogs can win it too.
Yeah,
Underdogs can win it too. And yeah, I was hyped. I was hyped. I was definitely
yeah. I mean, another miraculous World Series win by a team who hadn't won it before.
what a run, man. You gotta wonder if the Nats hadn't won that World Series, if they would have ever gotten back to that stage. I want to see if they ever do get back to that stage anytime soon. I really do.
I
That
mean,
was a run
it's up
for
in
the
the
ages.
air. I mean, so, when you see teams like that, I mean, we saw it with the Cubs. They've been very unsuccessful their entire franchise history. They win that one, and then they start to go downhill once again. But at least they made it to the top, and they won. They won. So that's all that matters.
Yeah, obviously here we are now waiting for the 2021 season to, opening day and stuff like that. But basically, I started getting interested into baseball because of, well, a beef between my mom and her friend, Cubs versus Mets and stuff like that. That's basically what got me hooked because I kept hearing about it. And I remember hearing about Game 4 while my mom was watching the news. I remember she was like, 7-0. Oh my gosh. And it was just like 7-0 what? And I'm watching the game. It's 7-0. I'm like, oh well. That's obviously, yeah. I was thinking that. Oh man, I came a long way from that too.
Yeah.
But the NBA one is probably the most random one, and probably the saddest one too, because I remember when I was in grade school. I think I may have told you this before, but I remember going into, you know, the class, us going out in the hallway, and my classmates were talking about how KD went off or something like that. This was like obviously back when he was on the Thunder, and near when they went to the finals and stuff like that. And they was like, "Bro, KD just dropped this, blah blah blah." And I remember saying out loud, obviously, "Who is KD?" Because I was like, "Who's KD? KD?" And I was just like, "Who's KD?" It's like, "You don't know who KD is?" I'm like, "Oh, it's KD, like K and then D." It's like, "Bro, you don't know who KD is?" I'm like, "Nope, never heard of him." "Oh my gosh, bro, you ain't never heard of KD?" And yeah, I mean, I obviously wasn't influenced by basketball that much in my younger years. Um, so it took me years to figure out what was going on in the NBA. I didn't start paying attention to the NBA until I was randomly scrolling through channels and I saw Stephen A. Smith yelling on First Take about the NBA Finals. That's literally what got me interested in the NBA.
That is kind of crazy. I mean, I would probably say the NBA is my most recent sport that I got into. That was probably like 2014. It was funny because I remember my dad texting me saying the Pistons are on a 10-game win streak, and then after that, ever since that has definitely turned into probably my favorite sport, which is interesting. But nonetheless, yeah, I I guess I'm kind of recent, not really. But yeah, hey, that's kind of crazy. That is crazy.
And just random too. I mean, I'm just scrolling through channels during the summer, summer vacation style. I'm just like, I need something to watch because I'm thinking there's no SpongeBob on. I can't watch that. I'm just like, I just see this man yelling about LeBron James or something. I'm just like, it said tune in to the finals, and then I didn't even really know about that until I scrolled through the channels again and found the NBA finals on, and I just randomly watched the NBA finals, and I'm just like, so this is the NBA finals. I don't remember actually seeing Game Six, the Warriors win it for the first time live. I don't remember seeing that, but the very next year is when it really started to kick in for me because that's when I really started to get interested in the NBA. I think what really got it going was the Western Conference Finals between the Thunder and the Warriors when the Warriors came back 3-1. I have a friend who is now a freshman. Actually, no, he's a sophomore. And I was at his house for like I was watching Game Seven at his house, which was probably the only time I've ever watched another one of the very few times I've watched another sports event at somebody else's house and actually was fully interested in it. I remember talking crap about the Warriors and saying that the Thunder were going to go to the finals, especially when they were up 3-1, man.
Yeah,
And I ate my words in the worst way possible. And people, I don't know, it wasn't as bad as when people are on your head about the Blackhawks and Red Wings 3-1 lead, but yeah, it was I was definitely eating my words on that one. And you know what? That's definitely what got me interested because that made me that left sour taste in my mouth, man. When you're wrong about who's gonna win the series, that leaves a sour taste in your mouth, man. Because it's like, especially when you're bold about it. Oh man,
hey,
gosh.
that's why I don't talk too much before a series because I don't let it backfire on me.
But yeah, that's really what got me into the NBA was that sour taste of being wrong about the Thunder 3-1 lead, and then obviously I remember my dad yelling about the Warriors blowing that 3-1 lead because he really didn't he really doesn't like LeBron James or and it's just like he's like I don't really like LeBron. I mean with Bulls fans it's like
Yeah,
LeBron is just like public enemy number one.
yeah, I get that. A lot of people are not fans, especially if you're. I've been a fan of the Eastern Conference for a while.
Yeah, it's pretty evident. Um, but yeah, that the NBA was very random. Especially starting with just looking at Stephen A. Smith just yelling about the Cavs, how that
Yes,
that just grabbed my interest. It just random.
that is very random.
um, and I really want to touch up on the NHL because this is probably the one that I just struck gold on because it's not like you know like hockey is not a sport that is that was heavily advertised within my peers when it comes to middle school and stuff like that. It wasn't like people were all like, "Oh my gosh, did you see the Pittsburgh Penguins?" No, I mean people weren't like that. No, it wasn't like that. And obviously it doesn't get as much attention because I mean for some reason people just don't like hockey. A lot of people just really dislike hockey because I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why people have so much hatred towards hockey, especially a lot of my peers because it's like, man, screw hockey. Hockey sucks, and it's just like, why does it suck? It's a white people sport. What are you talking about? What? It's a white people sport. So does that mean that white people shouldn't like basketball because it's predominantly black? It just doesn't
No,
make
no,
sense. The argument doesn't make sense.
no.
Um,
Sports is for everyone, and I.
exactly.
You make a good point because when I first moved here from Kentucky in like 2012, that's the first time I really heard anyone talk about hockey as well. Obviously, because around that time the Blackhawks were starting their dynasty. The Blackhawks were a good team from like 2012 to 2016. So around that time period, a lot of people were talking about hockey, but since no one. So I mean, I
Yeah,
guess it depends if the city you live in and your team is good, that's about the only time you're ever going to hear anything about hockey.
yeah. You're not really going to hear anything analytical.
No.
Like bro. Did you see, bro? Patrick Kane can body Sidney Crosby any day of the week, bro. People aren't gonna argue about hockey players like say LeBron or
Yeah.
MJ, Kobe, and stuff like that. It just isn't really like that. But it is what it is. But you know what? What got me into the NHL is when the Nashville Predators went to the Stanley Cup Final. I that was really what started my run. And ironically enough, that's when they swept the Blackhawks when they were the number one seed in the Western
That was
Conference.
a good team.
Yeah, and I was just like, whoa, because I'm not even thinking about hockey. I'm just thinking about the fact that the eight seed, or as they call it, the second wild card, just beat the number one seed, and I don't see that very often. So
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, this is raw. I'm gonna have to follow this team, and then the Predators kept advancing and advancing, and they took the reigning defending champion Penguins to 6 games. And I remember seeing on Sports Center one night about the Penguins losing game 5 against the Sharks and then winning it in 6. But I didn't really pay attention to that Stanley Cup final. I
Mhm.
paid attention to the one after that because I just saw Nashville smashing cars and I'm like, whoa, this is lit. And bam, that's what got me into hockey.
I'm surprised you're not a Nashville Predators fan then.
Really?
Yeah. Hey, if that's the first team you start to watch and actually enjoy watching, I mean, hey, that's like me with all the Detroit teams. I grew up watching all those teams. That's why they're my favorite teams.
Yeah, I will say I like the Predators. I really do. I really like the Predators, but there's just something about the Hurricanes that just screams sexy. You know,
Not a fan
just
of the yellow, huh?
I know I love the yellow and blue. That is a nice combination. I would cop a Predators jersey. Really, I really would. I would cop one of those.
I
But
remember the Red
those
Wings
hard.
had a rivalry with the Predators when I first moved here, and I was making in like art class we had to make like uh different like random art pieces, and I remember making this like I think it was a Chinese New Year. I forgot what they call them, but it's like a cylinder with like strings hanging down or like confetti almost, and I made it red and yellow for the Red Wings versus the Predators, and I think the Red Wings ended up losing that series when they were obviously in the Central still, but you know that the Predators aren't my favorite. I was rooting for them though, and when they got that far.
Because you like the Penguins that much less.
I hate the Penguins. Yeah, grew up hating the Penguins.
Yeah, it's like you were incepted into watching hockey and hating the Penguins.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
I see exactly what you mean. But yeah, dude. I mean, from that point on, I mean, playoff hockey. There's nothing like it. I
Mm-mm.
mean, and they were right. I mean, I'm watching the advertisements. I'm like, there's nothing like playoff hockey. I'm watching playoff hockey. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's nothing like it. All these overtime games, all the crowd reactions, all the chants, all the pregame festivities, and all this. I'm like, whoa, this sport is lit. What is this? This is hockey. And obviously, I never looked back. Never took a look back. Now I'm just as big of a hockey fan as you, although not nearly as close when it comes to memorabilia. Um, but you know what? That's what you gotta love about hockey, man. There's really no sport like it. I mean, people are like, bro, this sport is lame. How is it lame? You ever seen this stuff in the playoffs, man? All the color coordination, bro. You ain't never seen nothing like a Winnipeg whiteout, bro. You ain't never seen nothing like a sea of red in Calgary. You know what I'm saying? All these teams, yeah, you just say, oh, in the NBA they color coordinate, but no, it's different. It feels different in the NHL, man, because it's like they are, and that they're more likely to stay interested in the game because there's not as much scoring and there's not as much chance of a blowout in hockey as there is basketball. Like you can go on a 24-0 run, you can have a 24-point lead at halftime, and basketball fans will be out of it. But a 2-goal deficit won't phase the fans from cheering their team on. Even a 3-goal deficit, maybe.
Yeah, because we've seen it before. In a matter of 2 minutes, you can score 3 goals, 3 or 4 goals. Just anything can happen. The way puck bounces deflects, whatever it does. If it ends up in the net, that's all that matters. But yeah, hockey's insane. It's the only sport where I guess fighting is condoned. I mean, obviously you see fighting in football, basketball, whatever, but that's like frowned upon. Hockey, drop the gloves. Everyone's going to be cheering for you.
Yeah, it's fun. I don't know why people have such this pleasure towards hockey. I mean, it's so lit, man.
I think
I mean,
another factor is because it's never on.
yeah, I get it. You have to go through NBCSN just to see it, but dang, man, that's why we need hockey back on ESPN for crying out loud,
What are you
man.
talking about? It's on ESPN Plus. You just got
Oh
to
my
pay, like $5 a month.
bro. Yeah, I got some culture changing to do. Um, I don't care if I have to get in the booth and broadcast the games myself. Hockey needs to get on that stage again, man.
Yeah,
Because this is BS.
I agree.
Um, but I also want to touch up on how I got interested in college football because it took a lot. It took some progression, as I like to say. Now, funny enough, I was a fan before the college football playoffs started, and it's funny because I know you remember the Alabama Auburn kick six, right?
Of course.
Of
Historic.
course, right? That was lit, right? So I remember seeing something about the Georgia Auburn game where Ricardo Lewis caught the game winning touchdown. It was insane, like double coverage. You've probably seen that too before. Auburn had back to back miracles.
Yeah.
Um, and I saw the kick six on the news, and I was like, "Whoa!" And everybody was reacting to it, going crazy. I had no choice but to pay attention to it. I was like, "Whoa, this is insane!" And obviously, I had no idea about I really had no idea about how important that was because Auburn was number 4, Alabama was number 1, and obviously Auburn went on to go to the national championship, and I remember being very upset that Florida State won that game, very upset because I'm like, yeah, it sucked,
They had a good
but
team.
yeah, that was a really good team. Um, and that's really what sparked my interest in college football, watching Auburn, go on that run to the national championship game. And funny enough, that was the first, the only, and the last BCS national championship I have ever watched.
That is quite interesting because I mean, it seems like the college football playoff has been around since like 30 years. It feels like that's always been a thing and it hasn't, which is it's crazy. I mean, I like it. I do like it. It gives I guess an as equal opportunity for teams to compete for. A championship doesn't have to be based on record or whatever, accolades or whatnot. But I like it. I do like it, but that is definitely interesting. I don't remember it as well as probably you do, but I definitely I know of it for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's the national championship, and stuff like that. And I mean, obviously, you look back at history. I just remember being so upset, man, because I really liked that Auburn team. I just liked. Now I didn't even really know any of the players. I just really liked the team. That's what really built my staple about liking the team more than the player or a player or a group of players
Yeah,
or anything like that.
you're not going to follow LeBron James to wherever he goes next.
No, I don't care if he. I mean, if he comes to Orlando, okay, we got something brewing. But if you once you leave Orlando, my guy, you are my rival again. You know what I'm saying?
I respect it. I'm the same way.
I'll be all over your head with we are the only team you've never beaten in the Eastern Conference playoffs.
Hey, I will be rooting for Matthew Stafford when he gets traded, but when he plays the Lions, no chance. And do you think I'm ever going to root for Matthew Stafford over the Lions?
Now let me ask you this: if Matthew Stafford 100% wanted to stay in Detroit, and Detroit backstabs him and trades him, and he faces the Lions, would you root for him in the slightest bit?
I mean, maybe a little bit, but no. I always have to stay true to the team.
Okay. What if he plays for the Packers? Okay, we're not even gonna
Hey,
speak to that.
Calvin Johnson brought that up. He said the one player he wished he would have played for is Aaron Rodgers, and that made me sick to my stomach. I was like, if you unretire and go play for Aaron Rodgers, I do not I no longer am a Megatron fan.
I lost all respect.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, that would have just been bad. And then finally, I want to talk about college basketball because this is the dimmest one of them all. I really don't have any real memory that sticks into my head about how I got into college basketball because it seems like everywhere I went, college basketball was on, and I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, I agree.
And I didn't even really pay attention to March Madness because I didn't know what TNT and True TV and CBS was.
Yeah.
I didn't know what those networks were. Um, and so I was left, and this was back when the national championship was broadcasted on ESPN as well as CBS. Um, I remember, um, obviously, the Villanova buzzer beater really got
Oh
me
yeah.
into it.
Oh, I
I
remember
didn't
that
I
well.
didn't see it live, and you know what sucks? I didn't see it live. Um,
I think I was listening to it
I wasn't
actually.
even paying attention to it.
I might have been watching it live. I think I because I think how I fell asleep. I had a radio in my room, and I would fall asleep while listening to the radio. And I remember having that game on and that buzzer beater. I may have turned it on my phone. I definitely I was either watching or listening to it live. One of definitely the craziest ending I've ever watched.
Yeah, I mean, looking back at it, I mean, the fact that I really I didn't see it, I didn't hear it until I was watching Sports Center and they just like breaking news: Villanova has won the national championship. I see people going crazy in Pennsylvania. I'm just like, whoa, whoa, and that's what got me into college basketball and stuff. And obviously, my dad came and asked me, "Jotham, who won the national championship?" I'm thinking national championship. I'm like, oh, this basketball game. What's that team? Villanova. He's like, Villanova won, and I was just like, what is this? And then I obviously dove into college basketball. Bam, there we go. North Carolina won it the next year. Then Villanova won it again. Then what I'm saying, Virginia made the run, and here we are now. I'm really I've come a long way. That's pretty much the staple for how I got into every single sport.
Hey, that was actually very interesting because thinking back, I probably do remember how I got into every sport, but it's been a while. It really has. It is kind of tough to remember too because I've been so into it for so long. It's just a blur basically.
Out of the blue.
Yeah, I mean it's not
Like,
really something you think about too often because turn on. I mean I bet you can't even count how many sports games you've ever watched. I know I can't.
oh no, oh no, yeah, no way, no
So
way.
thinking back to the first time, that's tough.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely easier for me because well, I could keep a memory bank for the first time I watched a sports event. You meanwhile, you didn't even reach preschool before you went to a Magic game, bro. It's just like, bro, this is like you where you talk about like things that are certain for babies, baby food, milk. With you can add sports games to that discussion.
Sure can.
That's basically how it was your whole life.
And you are right. I've been lucky enough to attend quite a few, and I'm grateful for it.
Oh yeah, but yeah, dude, that was my sports origins or archives, if you want to call it that.
That
It's
was
basically
that
the
was
history of
interesting.
how I got into sports.
That was actually very very interesting.
Yeah, I had been wanting to compile it all and turn it into one big story time because it was just like I sat back and thought, how did I get here? I mean, everybody thinks, how did he get here? And especially considering I really didn't know that much. Especially coming into middle school. Like if you met me in middle school, bro, you would have thought I was a completely different Jotham because it's just like I really didn't know all that much about sports. Really, football was my only. I was one of those football only guys.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't want to pay attention to basketball or any other sport like that, but football was obviously the sport that I grew up with. I remember playing with a football like that all my life. I remember I took a picture when I was like 4 years old. I was sleeping in the bed with a football in
Yeah.
my hand.
Yeah, that I'm kind of similar too. I've seen like videos of myself playing like wiffle ball in like my diaper when I was like 4, 3. So I guess I don't know. I guess everyone's different in how they come up. I suppose.
Yeah, and man, I mean, I can just remember how my room was arranged. I shared a room with my sister. Man, those were some good days, man.
Yeah,
But yeah, dude, that was my story time. History of my sports upcomings.
I liked it. I did find it very very interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of out of the ordinary. Me doing making a crazy play, making a run in a tournament. Just switch it up a little bit, give you a little history,
Yeah,
more history.
I like it. I like history. I definitely find sports history very very fascinating.
Yeah, and there's especially when it's personal.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's it for me, man. You have any idea of what you're coming up with next week? Obviously, I don't expect you to spill the beans because that's what I didn't do last week.
I mean, I do have an idea, and I wouldn't say you're making me feel bad, but I think it's time I need to do some personal sports playing experience once again. You're talking about bowling, talking about all these crazy boxing, even all these crazy sports. So I think it's time I will talk about a sport that we have not even mentioned on top of the standings.
Oh, and there's a lot of them we've mentioned. Okay. I'm
I'm
in.
certain that we have not said this sport, this the word of the sport. Like we've talked about some random sports like cricket. We've talked about I don't know random sports. This
You've
one
even talked
I'm
about golf.
I yeah we hey
Yeah.
I've mentioned mini golf. Hey, we have I know for certain we have not mentioned this sport, which is very exciting.
Oh yeah. Y'all gonna want to. Yeah. Y'all will want to tune in next week to see what this man has in store. I have no idea what he is cooking up next week, but you know
Hey
what? Hey,
hey
it's
you brought out a boxing glove. I might have to bring out something
something we haven't seen before.
something.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be fun. Story time special number 20 in the books, folks. If you liked it and you enjoyed it, give us that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 star rating on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, whatever you use to stream top of the standings and your story time specials. And obviously, give us that like, comment, subscribe on YouTube if you're watching there. And then follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, the big three. This has been the Storytime Special number 20. We got 2 decades worth of Storytime specials. No, I'm just playing. It's only 20. But we'll see you guys next week. Enjoy the rest of your week. Peace.